jump on it. Alrighty, so second up is opportunity for citizens to speak. Is there anybody that would like to address the committee outside of our scheduled address? Seeing none, moving on to action items. First action item up is approval of minutes from the September meeting. Be looking for a motion. Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions, concerns, modifications? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Before zero. Our second action item is approval of vouchers. Did we get any questions?
Yes, we had a
Excellent.
couple of questions this month.
Yep.
First one is on voucher 330766, Playworks Education Energize for $134,354. Question was, what is this for? And Playworks is used at, how many schools is Playworks used at? And Playworks is a program that helps children learn skills over the recess time and to create better relationships among each other. It leverages, they have organizational activities that allow for healthier behaviors and increase social and emotional learning. There's a couple different models there that we implement at the different schools. The Team Up model actually has a coach that spends a week each month with different schools. And we have the Team Up model currently at Whittier, Hadfield, Hawthorne, Prairie, Higher, Banting, Lowell, and Bethesda. And that coach is helping to train our staff and to make sure our staff is following the program. There's another model called Recess Reboot, where we get training, but our people then manage it through the rest of the year. That happened last year at Hillcrest and Randall, and will happen this year at Rose Glen and Meadowbrook. And then for the ones that have been through that program, there's continuing education called Playworks Pro Workshop, and Hillcrest and Randall will be doing that this year. We have several different funding sources for that. Teaching and Learning pays for some of it. The sites contribute some of it. Some Title IV funds are used, and we did receive a grant from the United Way for $25,000 towards it also.
Excellent.
Then Playworks. Okay. Next question was on a North Student Activity voucher. In the category field, it just said character, and the question was what fits in that category. And the category is actually the name of the club, and so this is a club at North called Character, and it's a club that helps youth through mentoring to be better citizens, is the main goal of it. Questions on that? Okay. There was a question for P-card payment for food, 3 different payments under one account, and it said what office was this for. And they were charges for food to the office of the principal account at Saratoga, and $474 was charged for staff for food for during the open house evening. And then the other 2 charges of $215.23 and $59.20 were also for open house night, but that was for food for parents and students.
It was just the description was cut off. That's why the question was there, so, yeah.
Any questions on that one? Okay, then we'll move on to voucher number 330339, CISA 1 for $197,292.55. Said, please explain what these charges are from CISA, and most interested in understanding there were charges on that bill that went to the Board of Education account. So I think everybody, I put a little more detail in the sheet, but I believe everybody knows CISA is the educational cooperative, and so we pay a membership fee to participate in their programs, and it's mainly the membership fees that are getting charged to the Board of Education. And there's also a school improvement network charge that is also included under the Board of Education. The other types of things that we pay for under that whole contract are the DAC network, which is District Assessment Network, the School Improvement Services Network, Parents United Consortium, and Institute District membership. So those are all included in the contract fee, but in addition to that, we pay for seats for special programs for our students to participate in. And I have detailed in this document what all those seats are and what the programs are for. So I don't know if you want me to go into detail on those now.
Mr. Como.
Yeah, there's no need for that. I mean, we just voted on that. It just caught my attention that the Board of Ed account was being dinged for anything. That didn't make sense to me. I guess I didn't even realize that there was a very big account there, and just kind of more curious as to why.
One of those things that's always been charged there. I don't have the history as to why, and I'm guessing because it's kind of benefits the entire district. It wouldn't just be a teaching and learning thing or
Any of the specific programs are tied to the department they're related to, but I think the kind of the administrative part of the CISA billing has always been coded to the Board of Education.
I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It was more of a curiosity
No.
question. Yeah, so.
And that is all the questions that we had.
Any other questions for vouchers? No? Then we'll be looking for a motion for approval. Mr. Como,
I move approval of the vouchers as presented.
and a second?
I second it.
Thank you. No questions? Nothing? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 4-0. Excellent. Moving on to our information items. First information item is referendum project planning.
You have Kate and Matt, if you guys want to come up, and Billy, Kate Egan's here from Bray Architects, and Billy's here from Bray as well, and then Matt Stottleman's here from Findorf. We want to lay out, I put on your desk the current draft of the construction schedule for the middle schools and the work that's going to be done at South. Kate's going to start off by just kind of showing you the plans that we have for the middle schools. And Billy's going to help us with a virtual tour of those sites. And then Matt's here to talk about, if you read your executive summary, we have some logistical issues with the middle schools. It's pretty invasive renovation going on at those schools, and we need some guidance on what the board is willing to consider in terms of construction during the school year. Findorf has a lot of experience in doing that, so that's not a new concept. It's more of a comfort level issue. Can we remove ceilings and maybe some floor tile this coming Christmas, and just have plain concrete and exposed ceilings during the school year next year to help us get to summer where we have, you don't have to wait for those things. We can get right to work. So I'll turn it over to Kate, and feel free to ask any questions that, are we live yet? Oh, okay.
Connection.
It's always a plus.
And then Kate, are we going to touch on this past summer at all, or we're just moving forward, right?
Covered that last month.
Okay, that's what I
feel
thought.
like.
I just wanted to be sure.
If there's any questions, we can, of course, go back. Here we go.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited today to show our progress on the middle schools and South High School. Throughout the summer, we met with staff. We met at the administration level. We met with the principals and some key figures. I'm going to go to the next one, please. So we met with key figures. We met with administration. The last couple of months, we've been doing more interior finishes, so talking about the carpet and the flooring and colors. We've done site surveys. We've done soil boring, so looking, gathering all of our information into that. At the end of the summer, we worked with the principals and the administration to lock in the floor plan. So number of rooms, adjacencies of rooms, door locations, and we signed off on that. So that's really the plan. And so today, we're excited to share more visual imagery with you to help you understand the spaces. I'm gonna go to the next one. So the next steps, we have 75% progress sets being produced, so it's the construction documents. Our 50% progress sets have been budgeted by Findorff, so we just got those numbers back. We've met with the city of Waukesha a couple weeks ago. That's our second meeting with them now, talking about the regulatory processes. We're getting ready for our plan commission at the end of the year. Our construction documents will be issued in December, and bidding it will be awarded in February, and then breaking ground in the spring. Any questions at any of that information? Otherwise, I'll go through the 4 schools and give you some high-level information, and also a lot of it's imagery. We like to be able to show you sort of 3D to experience the spaces versus plans. So if you have a question about it, feel free to ask. A lot of this is the same information the scope has not changed at the 4 schools. We've just been fine-tuning the details and developing the design for each of them. So at Butler Middle School, there are major site renovations to improve the flow and safety for student pickup, as well as visitors and parents. It's a 3-story secure addition that has the elevator, so Butler does not have the elevator currently. We're renovating all of the bathrooms to be ADA compliant, upgrading plumbing, electrical, and heating systems. We're replacing almost a majority of the interior finishes, doors, and door hardware to make them ADA compliant. We're renovating the main office area to become the new library, and then renovating that library area to be additional classrooms, focusing on science classrooms, and then renovating the kitchen and servery area of it. So here's a larger rendering. You can see the stairwell. I'll go one more. And one more is the video. I think we did the video at the end. So here's the main office. You can see in the plan view of those stairs with a switchback ramp. So into the secure vestibule, into the office, or straight through once released into the commons. And go one more. And the plan shows how that feeds down. The principal's office is on the left-hand corner. So the hallway connects those. I'll take you on a walk through that space. Going on our screen, so give us 1 minute here. For those in the back, you can see that it's moving. Give us 1 minute, please. Sorry. We can pull up the folder if it's not working. So we'll go through the walkthroughs at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Instead of bouncing back and forth. We have them all in the drive, so we can pull that up.
All right, hold on, let me go back to the.
Here are the science room renovations. So we were able to take a little area out of the storage hallway, if you're familiar with this location, and give a little bit more space to those 2 science classrooms with hoods. Keep going. This is the library. So the plan on the left is the top floor of Butler. So the green stripe on the right side of the plan is where the offices currently are. We're renovating that to be the media center, and that's what you see in the rendering. And then where we had planned to put 4 classrooms, we're able to put it back in the core of the building in a house concept with some resource areas. Let's see if this one works. I'm gonna try. We'll try if this one works. Maybe we'll get lucky. Otherwise, nope. We'll come back to the walkthroughs. So I hope this is legible for you. I was trying to figure out the best way to communicate to you the site options, the site scope work. So the colored image is Google Earth showing the existing site, and overlaid on that is the proposed scope of work. So the building footprint, you can see with the little addition, you can see the curb cut stays the same from coming in from the north. You can see where the bus route comes from Hine, comes and circles through. Some additional parking for staff. And so this will help improve the circulation, so keeping parents in the loop and then buses coming through from east to west on this site. So Horning Middle School addition, so this is the current front entry. So we're adding a vestibule to the front in the middle, so that'll be the new main entry for visitors. All the doors stay the same otherwise, so students will come and go as they typically do, but we're renovating that full block of space. Renovating ADA bathrooms again, upgrading the plumbing, heating, and cooling, replacing interior finishes, doors and hardware, renovating the library, media center, science classrooms, and again, the kitchen and servery.
This is one plan that during the referendum information campaign, we had actually an addition on the far right, kind of on the corner, if you remember, and we were going to move the offices over to those classrooms that run on Butler Street, right? And then I don't know,
Greg?
all of a sudden we just realized there was no need to move the offices. So we just create this opening. So those classrooms that we would have turned into the office will get renovated, but not.
It's a level 1
Save some-
finish
yeah.
upgrade versus having to
That's
tear
simpler.
down the walls and change it.
So this one is a little different than but to the better, more cost effective as well, so.
And we are showing a site connection, a new sidewalk that connects back to that shared walkway. Come back, there's another walkthrough we'll come back to. This block of space is being renovated. Right now, it's smaller classrooms, and we're going to combine them to make them some larger science labs. Go next. Commons, we have a video of that we can share. This is the media center updated. As you recall, on the second floor of Horning, they have sort of trapezoid-shaped classrooms. So we're renovating that block of space to make it more regular classrooms and more regular library space. Next. Here's a before and after. So the left is the current commons, the right is the proposed. New flooring, new opening into the servery, new ceilings. And here's that site plan. So this one is rotated, I apologize. It's, I made it larger, so I rotated versus north being up. But you can see on the left.
Go back one slide.
Sure.
The ceiling, is it tiled? The new ceiling?
The new ceiling, we haven't developed that design quite yet.
Oh, okay.
So.
I saw it as
we're-
one.
It won't be one big, it'll be a block of, a couple different, maybe some clouds. We're waiting to see how the HVAC design comes through. That's one area that we
And
haven't.
also the colors in the walls of some of these are just gray right now. Most of them will be gray, but we haven't gone through and done
Some accent walls,
some of the other things we'll do.
Some of the
in
brick
this-
will
in
remain.
these renderings, so.
So it's hard to read a little bit here because of the trees. So we're planning to reduce the trees along, I guess that's the south elevation that's planned left. And that's where the new vestibule will go, as you saw from the rendering. And so we'll do some updated landscaping in there, some planters to sit on, and then repave that drive. And then we're renovating the curb, improving the curb on the bus drop-off side. Les Paul Middle School, Central Campus. So the main office addition will create that secure entry. The cafeteria addition, which includes demolishing the existing cafeteria. You can see the addition on the left. Renovating all the bathrooms and locker rooms to be ADA compliant, upgrading the MEP systems, and then we're renovating the block of space that has the existing office and student services to be student services, staff workroom, and then a special education suite. One of the things that we've made sure with all 3 middle school renovations is to include within the updated toilet rooms, we've created single-use toilets throughout the space and designating one of them to be larger with a lift to accommodate adult changing table as well as a shower. So that'll be off a public hallway in each of the 3 middle schools, so students have access to that.
What does a special education suite look like? Are you talking like a sensory room or?
We'll show you. So here's the floor plan of the cafeteria with rendering. We have a walkthrough of this that we'll come back to. So here's that special education suite. So on the bottom left, one of the classrooms is more of this kitchenette area, so it can teach activities of daily living. So a student can learn how to do wash, cook, This will have a rubber flooring, so it's very clean. So we'll have a lot of those activities. And then the classroom to the south is more of a classroom space, and that has a sensory room off of it. We made sure to have the toilet room for that off the hallway, because you have some students who aren't special education but still need that toileting service. So that's one of the reasons we designed that suite the way we did. So here's the overlay of the site again. See how the cafeteria addition is curved on the corner. And then renovating the existing parking lot to improve flow and try to make up a couple extra parking spots. We're losing a little bit with the addition, and so by making it one parking lot instead of two, we'll be able to be more efficient. We're still working through the exact logistics of buses. We're gonna need temporary locations of that with this, so we're still working through all of that, which Matt will get into a little bit. Go to the next. South High School, so here's the addition, infilling in front of the library off Roberta. So it's a main office student service addition plus some renovation spaces to make that, the adjacencies work. We're also relocating the athletic director to the main office suite, and then renovating the athletic director office to be the student or the staff workroom. So it worked out really well with the areas for the high school that are getting renovated. It was areas that had been identified as a master plan of need, and it all came together really well with the adjusted spaces. We're renovating the toilet rooms adjacent to the auditorium, as well as adding in the special education suite another toilet room like at the middle schools. It'll have a shower and a changing table. South already has one that you had done a couple years ago when you did the cafeteria restrooms. Yep. And so this will actually be in the special education suite, so I can show you that.
And those suites, Joe Cook and his staff and the constructions team actually met with the teachers, and they pretty much designed
They did.
what's going into these suites. And luckily at South, we had that bathroom. We could walk right down and, this is what we're thinking. But a lot of staff input went into those areas at all the schools, so.
They knew what lift they wanted to use. We made sure that we made it a little bit wider to accommodate the equipment that they wanted to have in it. So we also have the science lab addition. We're renovating the space for the engineering preparatory academy. One of the classrooms that's in the block of space where the offices currently are will be designated for the health academy. And then there's 2 classrooms that are designated towards the special education. And then there's still 2 classrooms additionally that fit into that space that go into the pool of classrooms that the school will have access to. So that helps. They were short. They were using every classroom at max capacity currently. And so that will help them a lot, having 2 more classrooms is a gain for them. The rendering, we do have a walkthrough we'll come back to for you. Here's the reception area for attendance for South High School. Here's that video. This is the staff workroom, which is currently the athletic director. There's one more of that. Yep, this is another area. So we'll have mailboxes, lunchroom facilities, and some workspace here. We'll put a monitor on the wall for presentations and staff development. Here's the engineering academy. Nope, sorry, this is the health academy. So they need workspaces and 1 demonstration sink. So this worked out really well to go into one of the classroom blocks where the main office is currently. We looked at, during the referendum planning, we had talked about that location being where a physics room currently is. And when we found out the exact needs of this program, they didn't need all of those science spaces. So we're reevaluating that a little bit, but right now this is a really good fit for one of the classroom spots. Here's the science lab addition. So it'll have 7 stations, so it can accommodate 7 stations with 4 students each. One of the stations will be a lower level, so it'll be ADA. And it fits right into the pocket of that courtyard, right by the rest of the science classrooms. I mean, we're able to get a door to connect into the science. All the science rooms currently connect with doors, so staff can have efficiencies without having to go into the hallway. And we're able to make that a door off this space into that as well. So that'll be nice for the whole science department. Here's the special education suite. So it's 2 classrooms with small group instruction spaces between. So if a student is working independently, 1-on-1 or 2-on-1, there's private areas with glass for supervision to be able to watch. So that's what you see through the doors there. So it's 3 different rooms. You go to the next one. Oops, back one, please. Oh, it's the video. Sorry, we'll come back to the video. So that'll give you a good idea of what that suite is. Here is the site plan. So you can see the horseshoe turnaround, we're making that longer. And so we're working with the civil engineer to make sure we're show the number of buses you have. And so we'll make sure we have that pedestrian access point. So we have to evaluate if we keep the current walkway, which comes out of the music, if we keep that walkway, or if we encourage the students to walk on either side of it. So that's one of the things we're going to continue to develop. I know that question was asked at the last meeting.
Just one more thing on South, just as a reminder, one of the things we did call out specifically in the referendum was the expansion of AC to the rest of, it's kind of a hodgepodge. Quite honestly, I don't know how we got to where we are, but all the instructional spaces, but not the field house and not the locker rooms, because the locker rooms are tied to the field house systems. And then cooling at the other sites, we're going to try to expand it as much as budgets allow. But it is something we are, but South was the only school we specifically called out in the referendum, so we will be addressing that.
Do you want to show the videos quick first before we switch to
Sure.
the phasing?
I think it's important they hear or see what they're going to get before before we talk about how we're going to get there.
So here's the approach students will have when they come off the buses or parent drop-off. They have the switchback ramp, as we talked about, but also the social stairs. Covered overhang through the secure vestibule. So this will be a visitor's path into the office or a student who needs to come in to get checked in. So down this hallway is the administrative area. So principal's office on the left, assistant principal just past that, an area for students who need a little bit of supervision. Student records.
Well said.
2 separate reception areas. That's one of the things we talked through a lot with the administrative staff, is how that series needed to be. This is the student services suite. So guidance counselors on the left, social worker on the right, reception area. And the lights are turned off in the commons right now, but that is a really great view. We're going to do something very similar to Summit View, how on the outside you see the great imagery, but from the vestibule you can see out to the parking lot. So we're going to have that very similar here. So we'll do some great graphic design from the common side to see, so that protects the privacy of the students and staff in the student services area, but you'll be able to see out into the commons, so they'll have some extra eyes onto the commons area. Next. So this is Butler's hallway, walking into the media center. Circulation desk. We're still working through exactly the layout of this, so where the stacks and tables are going to be, but we're working closely with Jason and his team to prioritize that.
Jason will probably visit that area every once in a while because he'll miss his old home.
Yeah.
And I should add, all 3 middle school principals are here too, if you have any questions related to, at the end, if you have any questions related to the instructional day or what they do every day in their sites.
You can see the flooring pattern here. So each of the 3 schools, we're using very similar materials, but obviously very different colors and different applications of them, so that it's an efficiency from a facility standpoint, that it's the same materials, but each school has its own identity, their own colors and patterns. We're doing that consistently. Yep. So here's Horning's entry sequence for visitors. We're able to use 2 existing openings, so where this door is and then the pass-through. Again, we've met with the receptionists for both student services, main office, health room. This is the student services side, so office is on the left. I'm going into the health room now. Each of the schools has health room with an accessible toilet in it. Here's a flooring pattern for Horning. That's the office, the doors into the office from the classrooms or the hallway side. The left-hand side is all the science labs. And again, as Darren said, it looks very white, but will be, it's, until we add more color to it, knowing, especially with yellow and black, we're being very cautious of how much of which one to use and where. We're looking at tile patterns at toilet rooms and drinking fountains, how to add accent colors and where. There's the science labs. Here's their new library, media center. And again, right now, a little bit of a holding place for books and bookshelf layout, but we're working on that as well. I think I said we're having new doors throughout, both Horning and Butler. We're doing some compartmentalization. This set of doors moved to allow us to have that lockdown. And then this is the commons. Again, the ceiling is not fully developed yet, but we're looking at adding some acoustical panels. And this one gets new rubber flooring. And the new servery experience. All three middle schools have a very similar servery layout. So the offerings and the way that they're served will be very, very similar. Horning and Butler's floor plan is very similar, but even at Les Paul, which is a different one, the experience will be very similar, so that helps with staff and efficiencies. See the addition of the cafeteria on the left. There is a drop-off in grade, so from the corner, it's about 4 feet off the ground, and as you get closer, it's a little bit less. It's 1 to 2 feet, so we're looking carefully at where that plane is. The nice thing about this is it's all at the same level, so when you come in to the vestibule, we're matching that with the existing main office level, and so when you go into the cafeteria, that's the same level, and we're making all of the different levels in Worthington aligned to that. So there's stairs and ramps that get you to it, but we're all making sure to come in. So here's the vestibule into the main office at Les Paul. Walking down the hallway, the SRO will be the first office on the right. Some additional offices, principal, assistant principal, conference room at the end. And we made sure to line this door up exactly with where the door into the student services is. So they'll have visibility of the back door and each other. Health room on the right, files for student records, counselors, guidance counselors, social worker, and a breakout space that supports the guidance student services department. Here's the experience going into the new cafeteria. That goes down to the Worthington gym, those stairs. Still developing the ceiling a little bit in this, but we're trying to embrace the circles. That goes back into the Worthington building, the 2 doors into the servery. We'll have shades on the windows so they can use presentations. So, and there is a sunshade there. We did a sun study to look at how the sun comes in, that is west exposure. So we're looking to see how the sun comes in at what times of day. And then we'll do shades that are controlled above the sunscreen shade as well as below. So we can control, how the light comes in and how that's affected. South High School. Offices on the left and the right. We have the windows up high to get some borrowed light to come in through. Some open work area for coaches. Conference room on the right. Student resource area for career planning. a small breakout space. We have a couple others. Otherwise, the other thing we can do, so one of the things, we work basically in 3 dimensions. So everything we do is modeled. So we have full-scale models of the buildings. A lot of these renderings were done with a program called Enscape. It's a little bit like a video game. So if there's something at one of the buildings you'd like to see, Billy can walk you through it. Is there something you'd like to see? Would you like to see the special education suite, one of the toilet rooms, a science room a little bit closer?
I'd love to see the special education.
Great. Do you want to see Les Paul or South High School?
Paul would
Les
be
Paul?
fantastic.
So that's the door to the outside. We've tried to be efficient keeping all the wet walls together, so sinks and washer and dryer, all the cabinetry. Refrigerator in the far left-hand corner. So again, this will be a rubber flooring. You want to walk them through the bathroom? It's the door on the right. That's all right. So again, part of it is we have to color, we have to tell everything what color it's going to be, what pattern it's going to be. So that's the pro and con of having the whole building done, that you get a pretty good idea of what it is, but it's not exactly the color or floor finish. But you get a pretty good idea of the shower on the left, sink, toilet, left turning around area. And then just straight through here to the left is where there's enough space for a changing table or a lift. The door we're looking at goes back into that the classroom, and the door on the right goes into the hallway. So a student could come in without having to go through this special education space. And that ties into where the back door to student services currently is. This room just takes you back into that classroom. The door on the left is a storage room. Go back out into the hallway and around. We can go into the classroom. That goes directly outside. Again, not much here yet, but again, a lot of it's furniture and furnishings. And then the door on the right is into a sensory space.
Are those dots on the wall pipes?
Those dots on the wall shouldn't be there. So don't even worry about those. I think those are from just.
The patterning? Is it lighting? Oh, it's
It should just be.
sorry, it will not be that crazy of a pattern.
Yeah.
It'll be painted a single color. I think it's reflections. So that's part of it again, is all of us and our consultants work in this. So you see the outlets on the wall, you see the light fixtures. We basically have to tell them, you know, you're a double duplex, you're a data port, you're a USB plug, you're a, what type of light fixture are you? So that's why you're getting kind of the reflection of it. But yes, it won't have any of those glares and reflections on it.
Thank you. I just have random questions for different buildings, so
Sure.
I didn't want to interrupt you every time I had one, so I just wrote it down.
Great.
So the South Special Ed bathroom that was added when we did the cafeteria last year, has that been helpful? Is it just what they wanted that we're making the other one just like that? I mean, now they're going to be at 2 separate ends. Is it still going to be used?
Yes, it will still be used. The current layout has been helpful. We've had to do slight modifications given some of the students that we're serving right now. The idea of having the ADA bathroom where it's currently at does help with where the current classroom location is. But given the fact that the lunchroom is right there, there is toileting that happens before and after lunch. And we want to be able to respect the dignity of the students. So by having the bathroom in its current location, and then where we're proposing it in the special ed suite, we'll be able to really work with the students who have needs, protect their dignity within the school day, and give the staff the space that they need in order to address adult-sized learners while at school.
Thank you. That, I believe it was the engineering lab. I think you said it might have been the health academy, but then I think it was the engineering lab, but that's going to go in the current office space?
So yes, the The Health Academy space is going to go in one of the, there's 5 classrooms that fit back into the current office space. So 2 of them are going to be special education, 1 is going to be Health Academy, and 2 are going to be just general, undetermined at this point, classrooms for them to use as needed.
It's going to be Health Academy, okay.
Academy,
So
yes.
the rest of the Health Academy isn't right there, but that one is just in case you need an extra.
So part of it was we, during the pre-referendum, had identified it to go into a physics classroom when we were going to build the new science lab. But in looking at what the needs of the space were, it would have been taking away a science lab from South High School. And we didn't think that was the best choice. So we did meet with the Health Academy and discuss the location. They're not adjacent currently. And keeping the flexibility and the ability to have that extra science lab, everybody agreed that this was a good compromise and a good location for them to land.
And we've shared that with the Health Academy 2 weeks ago, or
Yep. Their last
So they're
board,
aware of it.
their
They-
last
they were
board
fine
heard
with it.
that. And we worked with Maria on that as well, and Kevin.
That leads me to another question. So with the transition in leadership at South, who have you been able to speak with as far as gathering all of this input? I mean, someone in leadership before might have had an idea, and now someone might have a new idea. How are you able to make sure that the plan is the plan at South?
Yeah, we've met with, well, the new principal, and really we hadn't gotten, I forget how far we were in the design phase when the previous principal was there, but so he's been involved with our design meetings since July 1. Actually, I think I shared some information with him prior to that. Then we've also met with the AD, the Health Academy. We've met with the tech ed staff for the engineering. So a lot of it's been classroom level people we've met with, more so than I think even than the principal and the assistant principals have been involved as well. So I think we've done a nice job of gathering the input at South, especially on the special ed side of things, I can say.
Staff, I think we've had a half dozen or so meetings with South. The one variable in that has been Kevin, the principal. Athletic director's voice. We've run the plans by Health Academy teachers, engineering Academy teachers. We've had student services staff in to talk about the office layout. We've had the secretaries in to take a look at the office layout. So the staff at South that has been there since we've proposed this project has had a lot of eyes on this. And Kevin's been with us now for 3 months.
Thank you. I'm not doubting all of the ideas and input that are in there. In fact, many of the things that you've walked us through amaze me because I'm like, wow, that's a great idea. I wouldn't have thought of that. So I think you've probably done a few schools before and you know what you're doing. So
I just want to add one more thing. Before we even went to referendum, we had a master planning meeting with South High School representatives, and 2 of the assistant principals were in that meeting, and Maria has been consistent through all of the meetings. So that was, it wasn't even, before we even determined what scope would be happening, they identified some needs at South High School. And again, as I mentioned in my preliminary, it worked out really well that Health Academy needed a space, and it made sense to move that there, and Engineering Academy needed a space. Special Education got displaced because of the main office, and it worked to put them in the new space. So it really worked out well of the needs that we had heard during that master planning conversation, and with what components happened, to not move spaces once, like spaces that needed to get moved, it made sense with the spaces that then got, domino affected from it. So I do feel like it came together really well.
2 more questions.
Sure.
The Les Paul shades, who controls them?
So they'll be motorized.
Okay.
So they'll be all together. So they'll go up together or down together.
The former shades at South were kind of
I know what you're talking
yeah.
about.
So some of them will be manual. So we'll look like the classroom shades will be manual to be able to control per classroom window. But spaces like possibly some of the libraries if they have exterior, or like the Les Paul where that all is one, we'll look at that as to be motorized.
Okay. And then the last thing, you said you had a meeting with the city. How did that go?
Really well. So we've met with them twice. So we've met with Doug Kaler, the city planner. We met with Kristen Stone, who's the chief inspector. Brian Charlesworth, the fire marshal, has been in that. And we've had 2 to 5 city engineers consistently in those meetings. So the city is now reviewing their own plans with the consultants. So that was one of the big things we talked about, is whether we'll go to state review or city. And we're able to do the city review. So we've met with that reviewer as well. And then we're looking at, again, that plan commission submittals and going through all of that. So we've been able to give the city preliminary plans, and they've given us feedback on that. So that helps us and our consultants and design teams have feedback earlier, which is really beneficial to all of us. So we've been really happy with the feedback they've provided.
Como?
It'll be really great to have an entrance for Butler. What on the doors on Michigan, which are on the north side? Remind me, what are we going to do with those doors beginning of school, end of school? Are they open? Or people still can flow in? Just remind me of the security aspect of that and what the flow will look like for students and parents.
So they'll be open before school for students to come in, for the walkers especially. All of the transportation will come in off the south side.
Jason's
The new part. The buses will be on the south side.
In the more, so on the north side there, from Michigan Avenue, that is mostly going to be only used as an exit. So everyone will be coming in on the south end. The walkers would have to come around because that's.
So those doors will be locked in the morning then,
That is correct.
forcing everyone to go on the south side.
Correct. So everyone will be coming in through one entrance, but exiting they can exit through any door.
Okay. And same question for Horning on, I think that's Wolf. The doors, the set of doors there. Bob, what are you planning on doing with that?
They're going to continue to enter through those cafeteria doors.
You might, yeah, why don't you, so our audience can hear.
I don't see a big change to the traffic flow with students coming in. Right now, they primarily go through those cafeteria doors, so that will be, that's not the main entrance, but we'll continue to do bus drop off, and the kids could be dropped off on Butler Drive and then walk up the sidewalk coming through the cafeteria.
Okay, so not much of a change then.
Right.
Okay. The only other thing that I wanted to take a peek at is what the grass area by the science rooms. What does that look like? I'd like to see the walkthrough of the new science.
At South High School?
Yeah, at South.
Sure.
Yeah.
In general, I don't know how much you're going to see through our walkthrough. The courtyard is still there.
Well, the
So-
courtyard's there, so it's
And
not.
there's the courtyard's kind of an L shape.
Back to the
As you walk into it, you can go to the right, and we're just filling in that.
Oh, just a portion of
The
it.
courtyard
Not
is.
the whole thing, but just
No,
a portion
just
of it.
an area about the size of this boardroom.
So I was going to say, I thought we could get way more than another science
we
room
could.
in there.
Right.
I just couldn't remember what we're
Yeah,
doing
there's
with
quite a
that
bit of
area.
space in that courtyard. I mean, I would think you could probably add
That plan, I wouldn't have it.
2 or 3 more classrooms in there.
And that's originally what I was thinking. I thought we were going to use that whole, I call it green
No, we're just
space, but-
taking the one,
There's the large courtyard. There's also an extra piece because there's the 2 biology rooms and there's a small courtyard that it fits into. If you filled the entire courtyard in, you'd lose windows to all of the science classrooms.
Okay.
So in this case, you do lose it to 1, but the rest of them won't lose the windows then.
Do you have that part of the plan, that top view of that we can look at?
I have a little bit. Okay. Cuts off a little bit, unfortunately. I can send Darren a graphic that shows that to answer that
that's
question.
the top. It looks like, that courtyard looks like this. You enter it
Will show
here.
you?
That's south,
And then
that's
it out,
south,
this
right?
is south.
South.
And this is not to scale, and I'm not an architect, so
Bailey said he can pull it up.
we're just filling in.
Okay.
Right.
I
that.
got you now.
Yeah, we'll pull it up for you.
Oh, yeah, here you go. See that raised roof there, just,
Yes.
it's oddly a perfect science lab shaped space.
It is.
I'm sure it was left open at the time for windows, I'm assuming. I don't know why else you'd leave that. That and to catch leaves and also.
Debris.
Debris.
Okay.
So the large courtyard you experience will still be there. It's really just filling in that niche.
And I don't know why I thought we were filling the whole thing in. And then I'm thinking, why are we only getting one classroom? Thinking, wow, that's a really big classroom.
Yeah. Any other?
Other areas you'd like to see?
Otherwise, we'll transition to the logistics behind all of this happening, so.
Presentation.
Presentation.
Like Darren mentioned, I think at the middle school level, especially the work that is included here is quite intrusive and just area of building that we're touching. So we've kind of, just like the design team, we're at a progress point where we're trying to start to align where the puzzle pieces fit and how we move things around, maintain operations at each building and across the district. So you have in front of you a little bit of what's on the screen here that just tries to outline the different areas that we'd be working in, and we've got some plans to also kind of illustrate kind of how these puzzle pieces move around. So if you want to go ahead and flip ahead, Billy. There's three key assumptions I would say that, or guidelines that we were given from the district administration starting to develop this. First one being a spring start, so spring of 2020 start after a bidding phase here in January, February. Intent to be complete with all projects for the fall semester of 2021, so about an 18-month schedule. And then the food service needs across the district were really, as we started talking logistics, a driving force. And we're going to go through the phasing here in a little bit different order, just because I think Horning is a good example of some of the things we think about as we start to develop. What you see here is some work that we're proposing happening over a Christmas break. And this is probably true of all the schools. I don't have a separate plan at each of them, but and we're working through getting the hazardous materials reports, but there's likely some asbestos to happen at all of these schools. The nature of that work pretty much isolates just those workers to that area. So the more we can get done ahead of the short window we get through the summer months, the better off we are. So at Horning, we're proposing the corridors and the common areas that would need to be accessed through construction At Horning in particular, depending if opportunities exist to get started, on a second shift or something during the school year, that's something we're still evaluating. But the intent would be in the summer of 2020 to do the renovation in yellow here, and that is the core area of the building, including that kitchen. So we talk with Aramark and the food service folks. The Horning kitchen serves the most buildings of the three middle schools. Getting this kitchen created as quickly as possible is kind of key. So this is focused for the summer of 2020, as well as those core areas throughout the center of the building. The reason we approach that first is as we get into the school year, we really focus on trying to preserve the learning environments. So by go to the center of the school during the summer months when the building is unoccupied, gives us an opportunity to work more on the perimeter of the building, isolate the construction areas from the learning environments. So what we're proposing during the school year is not all of the areas you see highlighted in yellow there, but a portion of them, and working around the perimeter. So we create temporary classrooms, probably in the gym or auxiliary gym, be able to displace maybe 4, 5, 6 classrooms, whatever we're able to recreate. Move those classrooms to those temporary areas for a time. Be working on first and second floor around the perimeter of the building to renovate those classrooms through the school year. And in the summer of 2021, whatever renovations are left in the locker room areas up on the north end that you see, the auditorium, gyms, and then at this building, the administration really isn't moving from their current office location. So that renovation would be isolated to the second summer. Again, this is still very rough. The principals, we discussed this with them last week, kind of the first draft of it. There's a lot of details to work, but we've kind of just started with that initial kind of the puzzle piece of how do we move people around, maintain all the operations that need to happen through. Butler. Oh, sorry. Like Darren mentioned, so we have extensive experience with schools under construction during the school year. This isn't an unprecedented thing. I think it is fair to characterize the work we're doing here as pretty extensive. I mean, this is not anything that we have not done before, but it is a lot of work. Number of students enrolled at each school and the amount of areas that we're touching. So that's why we took this approach of some work happening during the school year. These are some photos from, I believe these are both Belleville Elementary, Mayville. But again, this is during the school year where we've abated, done abatement, removed flooring, removed ceilings, cleaned up the floor. Cafeterias, structure things, but this really, in addition to the abatement that we're talking about, allows us to kind of expose all the structure. We can pre-measure for ductwork and things like that to be shop fabricated, and it reduces the amount of work that we're needing to do on a job site. Puts more of that work in the shop. Looking at Butler, this one has a bit more of a complex site to it. So here with a good portion of this project too is the addition that you saw before. So we're proposing starting that in spring as soon as weather would allow. Usually figure about April 1st. But breaking ground on that addition, in order to do that, there need to be some lay down area for concrete formwork, masonry. That. So the red area you see through the parking lot there is construction perimeter fence. If you remember from the site plan before that Kate showed, the area in yellow is actually where the new drive goes. And the parking lot expands more to the west. So we're proposing stripping that of the topsoil now, putting down gravel so that we can recreate that parking that we're taking over, the majority of it. And here. Don't believe we had proposed the buses staging on Michigan Avenue and parents coming through the site. I think the request from Jason last week was actually flip that and keep parents out on the street and bring buses into the site. But regardless, we'd want to separate those as best we can, just to try to, create. That would be through the spring of next year, so just the probably April and May months until school's out. During the summer, we would create the new bus lane that you see through the south end of the site, do the majority of the grading around the site. Have work when the fall semester of 2020 starts on the facade of the new addition. So the fence location that you see there is similar to what was in the previous plan. Access and staging for the work that's happened there. The intent then would be to have the site completed before snow flies in winter of 2020. So the rest of the paving then would happen in the fall of 2020. And this is, so beyond that, there will still be work in the building. So this is just kind of highlighting that. Where those go is still probably flexible, but I'm showing them a lot for the time being. At the building construction itself for Butler, like I said, we would want to start on the addition in spring of 2020. Just to the north of the addition there on the Currently, I believe 4 classrooms, some geography, math. We're working with this, with the building to see if those classrooms could be recreated somewhere to do a little bit of interior renovation starting in the spring of 2020. Reason for that, the start of summer 2020, we'd still be obviously working on the addition. The second floor of Butler, so the highest elevation you see in the lower right-hand corner there, we would go through and do demolition and recreate the new media center and things throughout that space. That would move, that is where the current administration is, so it becomes critical that before students return at the end of summer 2020, so fall 2020 semester, that we've got that new office created near the new addition. So what's driven us to this a little bit on this building is the way the building kind of stacks from left to right with the occupied areas. The kitchen here is going to be in the next summer of 2020, so we're staying out of the core of this building in the first summer. And the mechanical design at this building has 7 new rooftop units, so we're kind of going through the course of construction. If we can get that early mechanical work done to then feed work that may happen during the school year, looking forward to the school year of 2020, so fall of 2021. The addition will wrap up prior to winter, so 12 months from today. And then we'll have some remaining work in the orange areas that you see there on the highest floor, second floor of Butler around the perimeter. And then we're proposing working through the first floor of the building in what's orange there. The amount of area that we take there is dependent on what we do with students at this building. So, preferably take as much as you can, but we need to recreate, we need to maintain a certain number of science classrooms and things for displacement students.
And
Kicked around.
unlike Horning, where we think we can do it within the structure of the building now, we'll have to do some, temporary classrooms in the gym or wherever. But at Butler, we feel we need to move, either create temporary classrooms, which are pretty costly to rent, because you have to run power to them, you have to safety and security, all the things that we'd have to address is pretty costly. One idea that we've knocked around, and it's something that the board will have to chime in at, is moving the 6th graders to Blair for the 2021 school year, from Butler to Blair. And that would free up 300-ish kids. Now, that's not a light decision, and some people maybe it is, other people it might not be. But that would, it's close. We don't think we'd have much of any busing costs added, because Blair is within a mile. I don't know the exact, but it might even be a half mile. But that's a different approach. It would work nicely for the purposes of the construction, or we'd be looking at probably $500,000 to $700,000 in temporary classrooms, which aren't fantastic either if you've ever used them before. So it's really something we're going to need to know from the board. Can we plan for one or the other, or what's the best approach, or the one that the board would come to a consensus on that we can move forward with? So that's probably the biggest question we have for you tonight, is to think through that. And if you have questions either tonight or after tonight, questions or concern, reach out to us and we'll start accumulating. We've had preliminary conversations with Jason going back a few months. Could it work? What would you need there? Those types of things. But ultimately, that's a board call. So go ahead, Matt. Oh.
Wait.
What do you see as the pros and cons of that decision, like to move the 6th graders to Blair? The pros of that.
I'll give you the non-instructional response to that. It's a secure building. It's close. The busing works out well. The kids who will all go through the rest of their school years together will be together to form their class and their friends that will return to Butler the following year. So we're only talking the school year of 20 and 21, even though some construction might trickle into, well, we should be done by the following. So I just think it's a better arrangement rather than the portable classrooms. Those are not a great, and we'll try to do some temporary classrooms. We're just not going to be able to do enough at Butler to house the number of kids we need to.
Some of the cons to the temporary classroom, again, you're going outside throughout the course of the year. So jackets, boots, shoes, the whole business, the exposure to the conditions. When you look at the Butler physical site, there would be limited space. I mean, if you figured 30 kids in a classroom, you're looking at 10 very large trailers. And now what are you doing on the site to address buses, parent drop-off, pickup, staff parking, construction equipment, contractor parking? I mean, there's a lot. If you eat up that much space on the site, you're really running into some issues in how the school year would operate then.
Ms. Ranchek?
Thank you. What about our students that have special needs, getting them to the temporary classrooms versus is Blair okay?
We'd have to work on making those ADA accessible. So if there were students in wheelchairs or other, had other physical impairments, the idea of going to Blair, albeit, still an elementary school design, you'd at least be able to develop patterns for students who had scheduling, needs, visual schedules and everything like that. That'd be a lot easier to execute in an established building versus a trailer type setting.
And for sure, the school that's using it is only going to use it for a year.
Sorry.
Montessori.
Yeah, they have a one-year lease. That's why we made it such a tight lease, because we were already kind of knocking this idea around. So I made it very clear to them that there was no promise. I don't know if they run through June 15th or 30th, but after that, there's no obligation for us to provide that building to them.
Mr. Cole?
I'm leaning towards the Blair arrangement in terms of you're talking through the pros. The only con that I thought of with the Blair is leadership. Are we going to have to split up the leadership there, or how's that work? Counselors and having access to, some of the services. Do we have to have? We obviously have to have a. And the other portion was, lunch. How are we handling those logistics? So it's like we might need to add some more staff, perhaps temporarily, or.
We haven't gone through the direct details of it, but one of the thoughts is our assistant principal Jeffrey Tagey would go over there on a regular basis. I'd I'd travel over there periodically, check on him, but he would primarily be the administrator in charge. We have student services representatives over there. Back at Butler, we'd have myself and the dean of students as administrator, and depending on how we split the student services, they'd be available. Students with special needs, or we have special ed teachers in both buildings. There might be some, depending on parent, this is where communication with parents. Again, programming, because we have programs like Quest and Dual Language that are multi-level. That's something that's going to be a little bit more complicated. Now, when we consider those numbers in the grand scheme of things, we could keep them at Butler. But again, that's going to be a large parent component that we have to really process and talk through with the parents. As well, like I mentioned before, is some of our students with special needs that have specific programming within Butler. I don't know if we can duplicate that at a different site. We're only talking a few students, so we could potentially take care of that.
So for me, as I've been thinking through this, safety is my highest priority. Safety of students, safety of staff, safety of parents, driving in and out, dropping off, picking up, those kinds of things, which, the traffic flow is part of safety. Looks, I guess I don't really care too much about. I mean, if you have an open ceiling or you've seen some part of the structure, that sort of thing, that I don't is pretty low on my priority. I think everyone anticipates that. The other thing I really do like about Blair is I just think you guys, Findorf, would have more space to work, be able to spread out. That would, I think, help from a safety perspective as opposed to trying to get everything done in one small space. And then that goes back to Horning. We're saying, hey, we're going to use the gyms potentially as temporary classrooms. So are we going to have FIED? Are we going to minimize what activities are going on there? That's a programming issue, but.
We're going to make sure we meet the DPI requirement at the middle level for PE. While we may not provide the same level of physical education that would be going on outside of the school year, we are working again within some space limitations. We want to make sure that we can accommodate both the PE experience, but also getting the construction done in a timely manner so that we don't drag this out any longer.
And we probably wouldn't have those restrictions at Butler if we incorporated Blair into no FIED programming restrictions, I would assume. Okay. And what about lunch? I mean, adding that back in and.
Lunch would be the same way as Blair was doing it last year.
At the elementary levels, they run PE classes in the morning, and then they set up for lunch, and then they have the kids come into the gym for lunch, and then they tear the lunchroom down and continue on with PE classes then in the afternoon. So they would be able to get their physical education. They would just have to run at sixth grade, similar to what an elementary level is.
I'd be open to considering Blair. I can't excuse the pun, it's kind of a safety valve for us. So, yeah.
And that's why we wanted to get on this agenda, because we're kind of to the point where what are we planning for? What are our, the restrictions we have? So it's a big question. So I don't know if you want to report at the board meeting related to this, or how you want to go through that process to get their input, or do we want to report out that that's what we're looking at and just have discussion? However, we'd like some kind of guidance this month if possible.
What if we changed our full Board of Education agenda, instead of having this be an information item, actually have it be a discussion item? That would probably do it. We would get it done on time, see if there's other opinions, besides the FNF opinions tonight.
And one other thing with the timing is it would also allow us to start communicating with families. The sooner we, maybe wait till the first of the year or something, but start preparing for that.
Ranchek.
Thank you. I remember when our former board member, Steve Edlin, exposed the guts, if you will, of STEM so that the kids could see how things worked. And so I'm not, as Joe said, the aesthetics don't bother me as far as, it is part of the experience. Safety, yes, but safety in a different way as far as intruders. And maybe Mr. Cook and I will talk about that at the next safety and security meeting, where, a portable classroom doesn't seem to be so safe. But then again, we closed Blair because of the safety. We closed it for a few reasons, but that one was zoned in because an intruder could get in. So how could we make that as secure as possible for that year if the students did go there? That would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, and right now they have the buzzers like we've had, but we could look for other improvements as well.
Knowing that it was online as a school last year, and we're working towards getting to a much safer place at all of our schools. We could maintain that current design for a 12-month period of time. When you look at that front entranceway that's being proposed at Butler right now, where you're going through a double buzzer system, where you've got safety glass around, where you've got a point of check. We could do a little bit of that at We also would have the ability, perhaps for a short term, depending on how many classrooms they need, to move that office closer to where that front door space is. It doesn't have to go to where the old Blair office was if there's enough classrooms. That could be something that we would entertain too in the new space.
And also keep in mind, 3 of our current elementary schools still have the exact same security that Blair has. I mean, we're working to get to those, but, so we have three schools now running with what we've had, so. I don't know if that helps me feel any better about it, but just thought it was important to point out.
Any other questions?
So we'll amend the board.
Yeah, might as well put it as a discussion item.
Discussion
so
item.
that, the other board members can voice their opinions.
Okay, if you want to.
We get the agenda posted so Mr. Como doesn't get a fine.
Again.
To be out of my hands.
Yeah, again.
I guess just to kind of close out Butler, so the final summer of 2020, as I mentioned, the commons area and the kitchen were saved for that last phase of work. There's also work in the lowest level of across all these schools is pretty extensive mechanical renovations. And so the scope of how far into the building that takes us probably isn't represented on these plans just yet. That's still going through design development. So Les Paul. So again, similar approach here that in the spring of 2020, once weather allows, we'd break ground or rather begin the demolition on this one at the existing cafeteria. In order to do that, we're taking the northeastern half of that site to try to isolate construction traffic there, creating a parent drop-off, and then bus staging along Grand Avenue. One of the things that came out of the meeting with the city about 2 weeks ago, we got some comments late last week that they would prefer buses are not staging on Grand Avenue. There's a bike lane there, so we'll need to react to that. They may allow it in a temporary condition through construction. I mentioned this would take us through the spring of next year, so April, May. Once the summer comes, we'd have the remaining reconfiguration of the whole north site there. Intent would be to create the new traffic flow, as best we can. Again, similar to Butler, we will still have work on the facade of the cafeteria addition when the fall semester begins. So we're showing the fence there to create that access for construction on the facade, and then a little bit of a different traffic loop for the start of the fall semester. Again, the intent here would be prior to snow flying in winter of 2020 that we've got the site configured and paved and final traffic flow. I mentioned the addition then would be going through about November, December of 2020. Construction a little bit. So in the upper left, you see highlighted that's entirely the addition portion. In order to do that, we're taking the current cafeteria offline. So we've met with Aramark, the food service vendor, to work on what a temporary cafeteria sequence would look like in the lower part of the Lincoln. So kind of started to develop plans for that that would begin in the spring of 2020. Summer of 2020, this school in particular, the architectural areas are probably a little more limited than some of the other schools. But like I mentioned, pretty extensive mechanical work. So as that scope develops, we'll have to identify the other areas that we'll be working through, likely corridor in the photos. Wrapping up before winter of 2020. Summer of 2021, architecturally, some of the last areas would be the current office addition. Again, and that's just a function of don't have a place to relocate them during the school year or different time, and we save that renovation for the final phase. South, probably a little bit. Sorry, go ahead.
So real quick, Carroll, is that going to be completely closed down that street, or is there some?
No, we're proposing, there is a parking lane there, and the layout there is proposing that we would take just that parking lane.
That red?
Yeah, that red is
Okay.
indicating the
So it's like
fence location.
half the street or
One,
whatever?
it's one parking, it's the parking lane out, so.
Okay.
About 10 feet in. You'd still have two-way traffic.
One way.
Well, there's only one way right now.
It's one-way
right?
traffic.
Waukesha.
Yeah.
There's a train too.
It's probably safer being a one-way road anyway, so.
And I'll say I'm certain there's a permitting process for obstruction permits or occupancy permits with the city. We've brought this to them as just an initial plan for our kind of meet and greet meeting.
So when you look at the number of parking spots right now versus once everything's all done, what's the difference? How many are we losing? 6-ish?
6 to 8, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's all we had on Les Paul, we can jump
Yeah,
to
yeah,
south.
sorry.
And in Les Paul, we don't have the issues with the students because we're not going into the instructional spaces at all, so. Minus the gym, I guess, would be the only.
Yeah, the mechanical work, like I said, will take us there, but that's something that we could.
Around.
South's probably a little more straightforward, like, additions highlighted there, again, the spring 2020 start, once weather allows. Summer of 2020, we expand that a little bit. The current plan has, some renovations through the library area that adjoins the new office. There's a health room proposed for some renovation up here. Restrooms and that is all, that could fluctuate a little bit depending on the needs. We need to look at where they can. The fall semester, like I said, those areas are shown there again, where, they likely won't take 9 months for those couple of areas. And then the backfill of the current office area, we're showing into the fall semester of 2020. Aaron mentioned this was one through the referendum that had a considerable scope of adding cooling throughout the rest of the educational spaces. That's not shown on these plans, obviously, but I suspect that work is going to be largely focused in the summer of 2020 and likely summer of 2021. Talked about Butler, I guess, in depth there a little bit when we started discussing Blair. I guess, is there any other questions on the phasing and that rough outline?
Anything?
So here's the next few months, and I think we laid that out at the beginning, but also we might come back in November if we have a plan. It looks like we might have some guidance on Wednesday night. So we're ready to come back in November to report out exactly where it's falling. And then the bid documents right after the first year. And then by some point in February, we'll have that process completed and ready for work in, April 1st-ish, tax day, somewhere in that range. So if there's any other questions you have on the scope of work. I mentioned earlier 3 of our elementaries we still have to get to, and we have been designed, but we're pushing to get these bid documents out. So we might be reporting out later this calendar year or early in 20, what the what the work at those sites will be. So also next month, I'll probably come back. I'll have budget documents so you can see where we are to date. So.
Excellent. Anything? Ms. Voigt?
Your comment about the 3 elementary schools, that'll be this summer, coming summer then as well, or the following?
Some of, one of our schools, we think there's enough space in the building that we can maybe do it during the school year. At Whittier, we think maybe we can pull it off during the school year. At Hawthorne, we might, we talked about an elevator, and that's something we'd have to talk about because that's not part of the referendum. That was a fund balance conversation. That is a small addition the way it's drawn now. We could do that during the school year. Hillcrest, we probably would be a summer project for sure. So it'll kind of be a mixed bag. We don't really have a timeline established for those 3 schools specifically, but we should have it in the not too distant future.
Do you have anything else for us? All righty. Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
That was
Very
long. There's a lot of
informative,
stuff.
but there's a lot of stuff. A lot of things go into it. Thank you very much. All righty. Next up on our information items will be referendum financing plan.
Yeah, and actually the next 2 items are kind of, Sherry's going to talk to you about where we are in terms of the final 1920 levy and tax rate. But it goes somewhat into what we're here to talk about under this agenda item is we now have Fund 39 debt and how we go about paying off that debt. Michelle Weiberg's here from PMA. She's helped us develop the financing plan. So when you look at this topic, you know, when we went to referendum, we talked about a 72-cent tax, average tax impact over the 10 years of the borrowings. And one of the options we talked about actually included the executive summary from back in February. I don't know if you remember, we talked a little bit about defeasing. Is that a word? It is. Yep. Doesn't sound right when it leaves my mouth, but in levying in advance so we can buy down the debt even quicker. If you remember, we during the referendum, we were really focused on a 15-year debt picture, and I think it was Mr. O'Brien who talked us down to 10, and then we also talked about, well, how do we get from 10 to less than 10? So this is just a continuation of those conversations. So, so the 72 cents is our average target, right, over the next 10 years. But when you start looking at defeasance, you transition to what is our overall tax rate doing? Okay. And can we levy a little more and have it still be a reasonable tax situation? So I was playing around with a spreadsheet and I ended up just sending it to you. So I don't tie out specifically to Sherry's tax levies because we're guessing on what aid's going to be, but we're in the neighborhood. So last year our tax rate was $7.80. The preliminary budget that was approved or was presented at the budget hearing was a tax rate of $8.51. So the orange column on my spreadsheet is the near final 1920. And really what we're missing there is a week from tomorrow I'll get our certified state aid. If you look in where the purple line is and right above that number, if we had nothing else going on and we were just making our mortgage payment on the bonds that we've issued, we would levy $9.25 million. When the bonds were sold, we received a bond premium, and Michelle can help answer why we got that money, probably, because it's kind of a strange thing, but essentially they buy down the interest expense. But we get those dollars, but then we have to apply it to the levy. So that's why it's a deduct of $2.5 million. If we went to defease $3.4 million, meaning we would levy in advance so we can pay down debt faster, you would add that back in, and we would still come in with a tax rate of around $8.18. So, but at that point, it's, a lot of this is all formula driven, but when you get into defeasance, it's kind of the old way. What target do we have? What's a palatable tax rate? I think that tax rate at $8.18, for example, would still put us, maybe one K-12 district in the county would still have a lower tax rate than we do. So we'd really be still at the low end. And actually, I don't know if I have, when we first started talking referendum, it was much higher than $8.18. So that's the plan. The right-hand side of my sheet is just a sample of, in the purple and then bluish boxes, would be the defeasance amount. And Michelle can map out, but there's a lot of ways you could use these funds, whether it's front-loading the loan, you pay back quicker. You could sit on the money, set up an account and pay off the last few payments. The bonds we issued, the $40 million in bonds we already issued, have a call date in year 7, I believe. You could apply it that way. So this really isn't developing the specific plan, but just gathering the financial resources to implement a plan. But it would, hit that goal of paying down the debt faster. Under this plan that I laid out, and again, we would accumulate enough monies so we would have, in year 7, we'd have the dollars to make the remaining 8, 9, or 10 years payments and not have to levy. So in terms of the 72-cent average, if under this plan, again, this is just a plan, we could have done 100 versions of this. 0, 0, and 0 would be incorporated into that 72-cent average those last 3 years, because and there'd be interest savings to go along with that could be $1 million in interest. And a dollar of interest saved is a dollar you never levy. So a lot of moving parts, and Sherry will walk you through where we are, kind of status quo right now. Her estimate doesn't get into the bond premium because we were knocking around all these concepts, but we wanted to give you an idea. So we're here to answer. I had Michelle come. I'm sure she wanted to see our construction stuff, but right?
Really bad.
Yeah. So we're here to. You missed last year's when we did 11 schools. That was fantastic. But we're here to answer any questions. This is. I don't know if it's a fairly common practice anymore, I think. So.
It is or it isn't?
It is. So I don't know if you want to add anything or.
I think you said everything perfectly. As you contemplate this idea, it's a year-to-year decision you would make. So if you wanted to levy in excess of the payments due and prepay debt at some future date, you can certainly do that this year and choose not to next year. So each year, I think, administration would bring you where current things stand, and then are there opportunities to levy additional funds to prepay debt, to save interest cost, to prepare for the future.
Mr. Como.
So we might be getting a little bit into the next
Well, the other kind
item.
of.
I mean, they work together because you
Same
have
topic.
You have some assumptions, right, in our next topic of what's going into the budget, and there were 3 open points that you still had, and one of them was our final enrollment. Obviously, our third Friday count.
We have that now. It was reported. The reason it wasn't incorporated in any of this is it was submitted Friday late in the day. So we're down in enrollment. 330 kids, somewhere in that range.
Okay, so that's more than what we thought?
I budgeted down 125 or 120 kids, 1%.
Okay, so And plus there was a school choice pupil adjustment. We don't know what that is yet. And some of the general state aid from DPI, we don't know what that is yet. So my question is when I'm looking at this sheet and I'm looking at a levy of $8.18, how conservative were you with those three remaining?
We've gotten an estimate on our aid. First of all, we ran our actual expenditures from last year because that's the shared costs you have to use. So we updated it with actuals, audited numbers. But we think aid's going to come in better than what we've laid out. I'm always a little gun shy to say how much better in the first year of a biennial budget, but because they talk about statewide dollars, they don't talk about district-specific dollars as much. So we think, I think we come in with a tax rate between $8 and $8.25, $8.20.
Including the down
Including
enrollment.
the defeasance.
The down enrollment. The enrollment being, open enrollment actually going out, being higher than what we thought. How about if I say it that way?
Right.
Right. Right now, we are still in declining enrollment, which means we have a declining enrollment exemption. So this additional amount of students that we have lost basically increases our declining enrollment exemption. So our overall revenue limit, what we are able to collect, is staying about the same because of the exemption that we're getting is going to increase quite a bit with this loss of
Next year.
students.
So, yeah, okay,
we
we're
could
okay
get
this
hit
year,
next
but
year.
as we start,
Right.
we have to pay the piper back sometime,
Eventually,
right?
but for
So-
this year's conversation, it's not going to impact the overall revenue limit. It'll change, the state aid is the bigger impact because that's going to change the levy amount.
So I hear you saying 818 is a pretty realistic number.
I think so.
I would agree
Given
with that.
the three assumptions we still aren't 100% sure on.
And it could be even a little better than that.
Because again, we presented to the public $8.51.
Correct.
So to me, this is still very palatable if I'm a constituent looking at this. I would maybe even like to see what that might be even a little bit more aggressively, but 825, don't know what that would. So this is, if we were to follow through on this, Michelle, we're looking at paying back everything in 8 years is really there's a lot of assumptions, obviously, that go into this. The board has to approve this every year and the board has to be on board with this approach.
It's about 7 to 8 years, and that's exactly what we hypothetically modeled out pre-referendum. That's why we put the prepayment date of the bonds you've already issued at year 7, and then the next step that you're going to undertake early in 2020 will likely be a bank financing that will be prepayable at any time.
For that remaining amount of 15 million. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's lots of flexibility built in the financing plan to do exactly what you're contemplating in any amount.
Okay, so when it comes time at our October 28th meeting to finalize the budget, this would be one point that we would be discussing.
That'd be rolled into the levy, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And this time, we probably should make a little presentation on it because it's a new concept, new to us, and draw a little more attention to it, and then it becomes just part of our budget building process going forward.
No, these numbers are way better than I would have ever anticipated.
The referendum was built on a valuation estimate of 2% growth every year, and we are just over 6% this year, which is really big shift on the rate.
Yeah, that helped us out.
That helped us out a
ton.
lot.
Sure. Well, it's good. This is good that we can even have this discussion as being a potential realistic thing to do. Not that we didn't doubt that a year ago when we started talking about this, but we can actually have the discussion, so that's great.
Ready, anything else? Any other questions? No? Fantastic. Alrighty. Thank you very much. Alrighty, next information item up is update on the 2019-2020 budget and tax levy. Did we cover that sufficiently, or?
I think we covered definitely the final pieces that we're
Okay.
waiting for. Just a quick note on the items that we know are the equalized valuation. I think Darren just addressed that. That increased significantly by 6.4%. Computer aid is holding to the same amount as 18-19. Personal property aid had a very slight increase. It only went up by like $13,000. Our energy efficiency exemption, that's always a known item. And then refunded taxes is only $13,000. So those are the pieces we know. We just changed our columns around on the chart that show the middle where we're sitting right now. This was before the defeasance talk. And then the open column is for the final budget, and it just pretty much shows what pieces need to be put in place yet. The revenue limit that's attached is for that middle October F&F update. Any questions? I think because we did discuss
And that-
it so much with the other one.
Right.
This revenue limit was calculated before we had the final pupil count, so this still reflects our
Correct. Thank you.
assumption.
Okay.
And that's where you'll see that declining enrollment exemption right now is sitting at 1.3, and I think it goes up to 2.1 when we, 2.1 million when we account for the additional loss of students. So again, it helps us, I mean, this year, but eventually, down the road, it's going to sting.
So I don't know if, the one question I wanted to ask related to this is the committee comfortable not meeting until the 28th when we approve? Do you want to have a meeting just to review everything? I don't know if, I kind of got a tax rate target, or do we just wait and see how the aid comes in, and I'll let you know where we stand, and it's up to you. I could go either way.
Yeah, my feelings on that, my thought on that is we really won't know everything till the 15th.
Yep. 16th.
And you guys need a couple more days to just get everything together. So now we're 18th, 20th.
Kind of there.
We have a meeting on the 28th. Why don't we just make sure that we cover it in detail on the 28th?
Okay. And I can send out.
We could get information out to people ahead of time in the packets, just so, and then ask them to call in, see if there's any questions that they might have ahead of time.
Okay.
But, I think we can break out a few extra minutes to kind of go through some of these things, these extra things that we haven't had to cover in the past with budgetary finalization, so.
Okay, excellent.
Are you good with that?
I'm good with that,
Patrick?
yeah.
Unless you want to hold a special meeting.
No, I don't really, you know how I love those. But I don't think we need one until we have everything done, like you said. That'll be the 21st, actually, probably. Should be a week before the meeting. And this went out in everybody's packet too, right? That
Everyone's seen this.
everybody's seen this, right? Right. So, okay.
Right now, I mean, we could encourage board, maybe in Todd's,
I could do something in the Friday update too to kind of
Yeah.
prime it. Prime the conversation.
Do you want to switch that to a discussion item as well, in case anybody has any questions Wednesday
Oh,
about
we
it?
could. We could.
Is what I would do.
We
That way
could.
they do have an opportunity to ask questions related to that
that's a good idea.
spreadsheet. So we just switch that one around too.
Darren's making one change already, he
Might
can
as well
make
make
two.
two.
Yep.
No, and I'll be honest, I don't know that you have to do that. I mean, I can tell you, often information items do get discussed, and discussion items
Yeah,
do
no.
turn into information.
They do. I would agree. But
So I mean, I think it just matters, the big difference is an action item, or it's noticed as a non-action item, which means information or.
Oh, from a notification
Yeah,
perspective.
so I don't think you're gonna, I mean, if you want to change the board agenda, it's easy to do, we can do that tomorrow. But in terms of noticing it, if you were noticing it as an information or discussion and then you took action on it, yeah, that would be a problem. But the fact that it's just, we've discussed information items in the past at committee and
Yeah,
at
no,
board
I would
level, so-
definitely agree with
But,
you
yeah.
on that, but there are some people that do not agree with us.
Yeah.
And we were just trying to standardize things a bit more.
No, that's
you know.
fine. But it's easy to, Sue can
Yeah.
make the change and post it tomorrow. It's not an issue, so.
24 hours ahead.
Alrighty. Any questions on that?
That's all I have to say.
Good idea.
Next up on our information items is the monthly budget update.
And we can make this actually pretty quick because it's September, so there isn't an awful lot to look at. Our main source of revenue really was our equalization aid payment in September of $7.4 million. Other than that, we just have some miscellaneous things trickling in. Expense-wise, salary and benefits are the main. Right now on your monthly budget report that you received, the budget isn't completely in Skyward yet. That will happen once we have it finalized. There's just some things that I don't like to re-enter again. So it will be entered once we have the final budget. And so next month, they'll have a better idea of comparison of actuals to budget. The 18-19 data in your budget report, the audit is complete, and so that is the final information for the year. Nothing out of the ordinary for expenses, though, and same thing with Fund 27. We really didn't have anything from Fund 27 revenue, expenses, salary, benefits. Fund 43 is our referendum money. You don't see a lot of interest on a regular basis in there because most of it's out in investments right now. So as those investments come due, we'll start seeing a lot more, or as they mature, you'll see a lot more interest being added into that account. The self-funded insurance, still pretty early in the year, September. We're doing better than we did last month. Still expect to continue to add money each month. Summer's always the hot spot for claims, so those couple months look the worst.
Speaking of health insurance, next month's agenda, we're going to do a health insurance report and kind of go over where we are in terms of the liability. We'll also be asking for the committee to approve designating the dollar amounts from the year end that we talked about also, so just so you know.
There's not a tax levy report this month because we don't have one yet, so November will be the first month that you'll see the actual tax levy report showing up again, and I didn't do the graphic charts because until the budget's completely entered, they don't really mean a lot because they're mostly comparing to budget. Any questions? It's pretty basic this month.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on to our discussion items. First discussion item is leasing of district vehicles.
I just wanted to, I wasn't sure whether this is information or discussion and, or what, or, so I just wanted to let you know, we've sent out an RFP on. For our maintenance vehicle fleet. We have a pretty aged fleet, and right now we budget $120,000 annually to replace either vehicles or big lawn equipment, and at best you're going to be replacing 2 to 3 a year, and we're just never going to modernize our fleet. Now the other thing with the fleet the way it is today is the unexpected breakdowns. There's we're always behind the curve on it.
Yep.
And we do a lot of in-house maintenance work on our vehicles, but it's reactionary. So we're trying to get ahead of that and do more of a preventative maintenance program rather than a reactionary one. So I sent out an RFP. I didn't know, they're due, I believe it's a week from today. The 14th. But I just thought I'd make you aware of what we're looking to do. See if you had any questions. I didn't know if this has maybe been talked about at some point in the past or anything I should know about it. But we'll go through the process. And then I don't know does the committee approve that type of lease? I really didn't. I mean, you don't approve the copier leases, so I don't know if this would fall into that category. So I just wanted to make you aware and just wanted to see if you had any questions or if you wanted me to handle it a specific way. Otherwise, we think it's something worth considering.
So how many items are you looking at trying to get switched over to lease? Because it looks like a 5-year lease on the equipment that you're getting out for.
I mean, if we went all in on it, and the nice thing is, in the first year, we'd probably look to do about a half a dozen vehicles. 6 to 8, I forget the exact number. And then you would lease, if you're liking the way the program's going, in the second year, you'd lease another 6 to 8, and we'd just slowly, and then you kind of get on a 5-year cycle. The other thing with these leases is they're open-ended leases, so we have a lot of flexibility in terms of them buying the vehicles back, and 'cause some things just have a lot more wear and tear. For snow plowing, for example, vehicles take a beating. So we have a lot of flexibility in the management of it. So, but I would guess that 6 to 8 range every year, and go forward from there. The lease is set up where I have 3 sample vehicles that we'd more than likely lease, a van and a couple of bigger trucks. So that's why there's only 3 in there. There might be some other vehicles, but I wanted an apple-to-apple comparison, so I sent them the specs that we wanted, and we just grabbed 3 very likely vehicles, and then they'll bid on each of those. And a lot of this comes off of, we're doing an RFP, but a lot of this vehicle purchasing comes off of a state contract that's already been bid.
Yeah, right.
So we're kind of doubling up on the bidding portion of it.
What do we use a 750 for? An F-750? It's like,
We got one
that's a piece of equipment right there.
By plowing.
Well,
Use
a lot
a
of
750 to plow? What do you put on the bed? Is it a dumper, or what do we use? Because 750 is just a cab.
If it's the one that I'm familiar with, they'll put a big salting unit on it.
yeah,
They do, okay.
that's the orange one, I think, isn't it?
It could be, I don't know.
Yeah. It's a big,
It's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big.
Yep.
Well, we do have a few big, we have a pretty large amount of property to plow.
Yeah,
And we
well, yeah,
also
you-
have to salt,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the city won't come and salt lots for us, so.
I think that
Yeah,
truck
work on
usually does west, because
Oh,
west is
okay.
just a,
They have a couple of them that are, plowing just tears up a truck too, so I think there's some that are just on its last legs, and that's what we're trying to replace.
Right. What does the normal wear and tear look like on a lease? Because you mentioned that plowing tears up a truck. I know that on a car, if you have a scratch on it bigger than a dollar bill, hold on.
Yeah.
Because you're paying. So
That's-
what is the wear? I know you got, on a lease, if you lease a car and the tires are down, you're replacing them when you turn that car in.
and that's why, we're already on a state contract. When we buy a vehicle now from Ewald or wherever, we're getting state contract pricing.
Right.
That's why the RFP is so important, is to sit down and interview these companies. And that's one of the biggest questions I have is, okay, what's our exposure on it? That's why we probably start out with just a few vehicles too.
Right, to see.
Yep.
I mean, I lease cars, but it's always that, the mileage, obviously, we would never go over,
No, no, it's wear and tear.
which is the wear and tear that's the killer. That could be.
No, because if you look at our trucks, there's not many miles.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They're
No, the vans maybe a little bit if you're
Yeah.
driving to La Crosse or,
Yeah, the high school vans are logging miles, but
but yeah, the plows are not. Any questions? Wait,
It looks like you're bidding for just Fords. Are there other
it can be,
comparables with a different,
anyone who's on the state contract and it's different.
okay. Because
We
our
just
fleet
grabbed-
tends to be mostly Fords, but you've got some, Chevy and
Yeah.
GMC.
Yeah, and we just grabbed one
any
brand.
dealership could probably get any. I'm sure that they sell Chevys at another dealership, which they can just,
Yep. And they have recommendations. Some vans they think are better than other ones, that it might not be the same as the trucks and.
right. Joe?
So are we going to do any of the maintenance ourselves, like the oil change and those kinds of things?
We'll do all of that kind of
That's why you're asking for a list of what's required. I saw in the contract or in the RFP, you said you wanted a list of all the things that need to be done for maintenance. And we're going to do all of them ourselves, or
No.
will some of the maintenance be done
We
by?
do, I don't know if baseline maintenance is the right word, but the oil changes, maybe brake, because we do all of the maintenance, we do a lot of maintenance now, but when it gets to a transmission or if it gets to
Dropping an
the engine block, or we don't touch that stuff.
And they're okay if we're doing our own maintenance versus the dealer or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, because they'll charge you if you screw something up.
Yeah, we just don't think it's cost effective because we have the infrastructure now
Oh,
to do
sure.
it.
No,
And by the suite of maintenance
Yeah.
and.
No, I like the idea of attacking the problem that we have. We have a lot of old equipment by starting to look at leasing and, integrating that in. And 6 to 8 per year would cover all 40 vehicles in a 5 or 6 year period
5
of
years
time,
kind of our
roughly.
target.
So,
I'm sorry, Mrs. Ranchek, or Miss Ranchek.
Thank you. So who does the oil changes? Do our auto shop classes do that?
Service building.
Why don't our auto shop classes do that?
They might do some work, but there's some liability issues if you get
Okay.
into brakes, and there was a student doing it, so we would probably not go there. They have actual cars they work on now, so, but we have our own staff at the service building that can do it.
Okay, and then I think about if it's not, so if I were leasing a vehicle, I would make sure not to scratch it because I'm paying for it. But my kids really wouldn't care. Do you know what I
No.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I have kids too.
are our employees really going to look out for those vehicles as if they were their own? If something happens when they're doing something, is it any hair off their back? And the reason I'm asking, or tied to that is, are any other school districts doing this? Have they saved money? Have they seen any sort of wear and tear that they're not getting those vehicles back? They're not able to get the money that they would from a lease because they're getting dinged and stuff like that. I mean, they're plowing with them, things like that. They're going to get scratched, so.
Kenosha School District has been doing this for several, so we've had a lot of conversations with them. In terms of the staff's view of it and how they'll look out for it, this is just my personal opinion, this isn't science, but when you're driving around in a 15-year-old truck that's all beat up, you tend not to take care of it. And when you're driving around with something that's nicer, I think the chances of you wanting to take care of it are higher. So I think, that's a training thing, that's a culture thing that we have to reinforce with them.
We leased in Appleton. Well, the big trucks, not some of the smaller ones, but a lot of the bigger ones we leased. Tractors and things like that we leased.
And I didn't answer the cost savings. Kenosha, what they said is, we don't know if we're saving money, but it's a budget, it's stable. We know we're going to spend this fixed amount of money, so you know what it is every year. Are you saving money? They think they are in terms of the maintenance part of it. They can't quantify, it's more of a belief thing. But definitely the stability of it is what they like. Because we might plan to buy a truck and then one of our mowers goes out, and then one new mower is $80,000, the big mowers.
The big one.
And then that window goes, that's why you end up with a fleet that averages, 10 to 12 years old, which in snow plowing years is a long time.
I kept thinking someone was keying my car at the same spot, and I was like, who's doing this? And then I saw my kids, with their little scooters going around my car, and their little, handlebars are off, and it's just a bar, and I'm like, that's you!
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good that I don't lease. Sorry, go ahead.
So we'd make the decision whether we're going to turn it back in or buy it? What does that look like? We'd make that decision?
In the
Determination of
RFP, it
lease.
asks for them to lay out our options at the end of the lease. I'll have an answer to that once the responses come in.
And then,
You know, it's turn it in, it's buy it for $1 or whatever the residual value is.
It's more than
buy it for $1.
It's more than $1.
Copiers used to
Let
be
me know
$1.
who you're leasing from. Okay, so the RFP, how does that work then? Do you just post it and then wait for people to respond?
We
or
sent
how
it
does-
out to 3 companies who thought they could take this on.
Did you send it out to Enterprise?
Yes.
Okay, E-Fleet or whatever that's called, because I know J.M. Brennan leases all of their service vans, and that's a huge company.
Enterprise, Sea League, and Ewald.
Okay.
That's who we sent them out to. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's pretty common in business, in people who have a lot of
Yeah,
service
in the construction
Brennan.
field, they don't own
No, they don't own anything.
anything. And that's the primary private sector.
Yeah, that's
People they're
exactly what it
leasing
is,
to,
yep,
so.
construction and service industry.
So we'll see if it's a good match when we have the interviews, but I just wanted to make you aware that we were doing that.
Awesome. Any other questions? Ready?
Hold the short straw.
Moving on, our next discussion item was the E-Achieve Marketing Plan.
All right.
Welcome.
This is what happens when you get added to the agenda late.
Yep.
So.
Actually,
You got to see the renderings
That's right, very
of the
interesting.
buildings, so.
Yeah.
That's a foreign language to us, building.
Yes, bricks.
Brick and
Who
mortar.
needs bricks?
Rooms, I didn't even know what any of that stuff was.
Alrighty, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Well, we thought that it would be important for us to come and just present to FNF what our plans are, have a discussion, make sure Achieve administration, district administration, and the school board are all on the same page in terms of what we're planning to do, messaging we want to convey, and that'll be helpful for everybody involved. So this is Chris Schulteis, as most of you know. He's the logistics and marketing manager for eAchieve, helps to make sure everybody has what they need, and of course, spends the other half of his year making sure that we get our name out in front of everybody who needs to see our name and knows all about it. So we're going to be tag teaming this tonight.
Last few years, we've been making a conscious effort to transition, reallocate some of our marketing funds from traditional marketing channels like TV and radio and in-person events to more digital, much like just about every other business in the country, more digital platforms, which can be much more targeted and dollars. So you can see that we've surpassed now the 50/50 mark. We're doing more digital area than we are in the traditional area. And the result of that has been a dramatic increase in the number of leads we've been able to generate. And that has translated into an upward trend in our enrollment. Two steps forward, one step backwards, but definitely a trend is on. So I think we're on the right track there. Thank you. But this year is going to present a couple of really specific challenges and I think present a couple of opportunities. So I'll just take a couple of minutes to go through those really quickly. Our biggest challenge has been the proliferation of virtual schools in the state. When we started in 2004 as IQ Academy, there were only 7 virtual schools in Wisconsin. When we added our middle school program, there were still only 12 programs that we were competing for students with. But what you'll see now in the last 10 years, in 2014 we added our elementary program, we're up to 30 virtual school programs in the state. And this year there will be a grand total of 48 virtual school programs that we'll be vying for available students with. So that's a dramatic increase in the competition in the market. The other big thing we're going to be facing this year, the open enrollment period is February 3rd through April 30th, as usual. But smack dab in the middle of that time is the spring election in Wisconsin. So the primary is on February 18th, elections on April 7th, which means the entire month of February, the entire month of March, and the first week of April, the broadcast space and the airwaves are going to be inundated with political ads, which means inventory for TV and radio, which is annually one of our biggest marketing expenses, is going to be really limited and really expensive. So I'm not sure it makes sense for us to try to compete. Even if we could get ad space, it's going to be sandwiched in between political ads, and we all know though the direction political advertising has been taken in the last couple of years. They're almost entirely negative ads. So what that does is create a small window of opportunity after the election when there will be virtually no political ads running, because they won't know, who's going to emerge from the primaries, so nobody will have ads ready to go later in the summer and into the fall. So we have this 3-week period after the election until the end of the open enrollment period when we should be able to do a very focused, targeted radio campaign, so we'll get more frequency of our ads, and that's when about 50% of our applications come in during those last 3 weeks of the open enrollment period anyway, so it kind of lines up nicely that way. So what we're recommending is very focused TV radio campaign during the last 3 weeks of April after the election. Because we aren't trying to do broadcast ads for 3 months, we're just doing it for 3 weeks, we'll save a significant amount of money. We won't be spending nearly as much on TV as radio as we have in past years. So that'll free up some funds within the budget to do some other more targeted digital things like paid search, social media ads, and connected TV, which is an emerging space. Connected TV is people who stream TV shows directly without going through a cable company or broadcast. So they get them through their smart TV, through their Roku device, their Amazon Fire Stick, their Apple TV, whatever it is. We can target those ads by demographics, so we're hitting specifically families with school-age kids. The ads are not skippable, so they have to, they don't have to watch the ad, but it has to run. And I think there's some real opportunities there so we can avoid the political space with a lot of those ads. In order to do some of those new digital platforms, we'll have to create some new video content. So I think what we'll be able to do is work within the framework of the budget, so we won't spend any more money. We'll just reallocate the funds that we have, but direct them in different ways in order to cover these.
Is there a cost difference between advertising on Hulu and advertising on ISN?
Yeah, the targeted connected TV ads are much less expensive. They serve them up similarly to the way you serve up banner ads on websites.
Okay.
So they'll be in a rotation and they'll get served up to a specific demographic. We can fence them so they only get shown to families in Wisconsin. So we are
Ms. Reincheck.
Why do you have to create new video content if we already had commercials ready for regular TV?
When we run on these different platforms, it's reaching a different audience. We're not necessarily trying to direct people to fill out an application, and sometimes it'll be to create more awareness of our program. Sometimes we can target them to certain individuals who have shown a proclivity for homeschool, for example. So we can create very specific ads to serve up to different demographic groups. One of the things that we're talking with one of the vendors about would be to do some ads based on research that they've done that showed when you do ads that feature people who've had 5-star reviews of your product or service, that those are particularly effective because people who are already in the online marketplace or the digital marketplace are very tuned in to paying attention to reviews. you know, like if you're looking for restaurants, you're going to go to the ones that get the most 5-star reviews. So if you create ads that have families saying, we're looking for an alternative to traditional classroom-based public school, and we found eAchieve, and we couldn't be happier, something like that. That would be one route that I think we should explore. So I think we can adjust our budget in these particular areas to move about $93,000 out of compared to what we spent last year, and move those into these different areas. So paid search would be a big area. Go on Google and you search certain keywords or phrases. Those are the ads that pop up first, and they have to identify them as an ad, but a lot of people, if they pop up at the top of the list, those are the ones they're going to click on. Social media would be an attempt to catch people on their mobile device. That's where most people are accessing the internet now, from their mobile devices, so we want to be in front of them in that space. Connected TV, like we talked about. Creating some new video content. Video is king in all the different formats, as opposed to static ads. We'd like to add a live chat widget to our website. That'll be have a live operator 24 hours a day, so anybody who goes on our website and wants to ask a question right away, they can chat with a live operator. It wouldn't be a staff person. It's a service that they provide. We would provide them with the stock answers to the regular questions. We only pay them per qualified lead, so we can define what a qualified lead is. In other words, they can collect their name, the fact that they live in the state of Wisconsin, and either a address or phone number, and the fact that they are looking have school-age kids that they think about enrolling. That would be a qualified lead. If it's just somebody who's looking to get a free computer or something, I think that would be a interact with people both by chat and by text message. That it works both ways there. I'd also like to add a new customer relationship management software tool. It would help us better manage the prospects that are coming in, because we're getting between 300 and 500 leads a month, but we're limited right now with the CRM system that INET has provided for us. It's very limited in its functionality and how we can follow up with those leads. So we want to total expenditures here, I have about 90,000, and I think we can save at least that much.
So the connected TV, the ads are, the vendor is iHeart?
That's the vendor that has the most attractive package right
Okay.
now.
And is that for shows that are in the library? Is that for library shows as well? So someone who searches, Roseanne, is that also for that?
Yes.
Or is it just for the live stream? It also
No, it'd
work
be for any connected TV.
in their library
content.
that they're serving ads up on? Okay. Mr. Como.
Just a few questions. With respect to the social media ads, what platforms are we looking at?
Facebook and
And
Instagram.
Multiview looks like the vendor that we're going to be using
They're a
for
vendor that we've worked with already to serve up our static banner ads and our pre-roll video ads. Those are the ads that pop up, like when online and you searched for Rockport shoes, and then the next time you're on ESPN.com and a Rockport shoes ad pops up.
the remarketing.
When you're on,
remarketing aspect of
retargeting, yeah.
Google.
So
Google
that's what
AdWords.
Multiview is doing that for us already, and so I asked them for a quote on what they could do for us in terms of paid search and social media, and what they're able to do in terms of cost for clicks per month with media was the most efficient.
How are we involved with helping guide, how we want it to be, the target markets and add content and those kinds of things? Is there a process that we go through of approval of those things? And I'm also assuming they're managing the bid aspect of those services for that and for the paid search like Google AdWords.
That's one of the things that we pay them to do, is to go through our Google Analytics and see what kind of search terms and keywords are directing people, getting people to go to our website. And then we give them the specific demographics of who we're looking for, and then they match those to us.
So you'll have some initial meetings on that. Is there any sort of follow-up that you guys have with them over the course of time, or how's that? I'm just looking at process of how you interact with them. Is it one and done, or?
Oh, we have a monthly follow-up. They send a monthly snapshot report, and we also have access to a dashboard portal, so we can go in and check the performance of our ads anytime we want.
Are you having active conversations with them and making changes as need be?
Yeah, we change it up according to the school year. So right now we're in, the post open enrollment exception or alternate open enrollment period. So our message is, it's not too late to register for the 2019-20 school year. Enrollment period, we'll change it up again. Roll now for 2020-21. Part-time program, because you can't enroll full-time.
So like for the Google AdWords, do you guys have a specific landing page that you've, like a micro page that you've worked on, or do you go just directly to the application, or how's that working?
We'll have different landing pages. We aren't doing Google AdWords currently. That's one of the things that we'd like to incorporate now, and they will help us create track.
Which ads are effective? Okay. Like doing some split ad testing and that? Okay. Okay. The chat, just going back to that real quickly, you're going to hire someone out for that. I'm just trying to understand the cost of this. So you're just saying that we're going to get a X number of qualified leads, and that's how you came up with this number?
Well, the 1,500 that I have there is a minimum. So there's a $300 setup charge to get the widget on the website and get it up and running, and to provide them with the stock answers to the questions that are most likely to be answered. Once we get that up, the cost is $15 per qualified lead, and there's a minimum monthly charge of $100. So if we get 7 or 8 qualified leads, if we don't get that many, we'd still have to pay the $100 a month. But I'm pretty confident that we'll get.
Yeah, chats have really increased in use quite a bit over the last couple of years. I think it's very valuable. The 24/7, at first I was questioning whether you could handle that, but at first I thought you guys were handling the chat. So the response, I'm like, man, that's really unrealistic.
We work a lot, but not that much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I'm noticing your community events, getting away from the old-fashioned road trip kind of experiences that we used to do. I see we are Waukesha, but I don't see the county fair. Is that something you still would be utilizing, or not so much?
Not so much. We gave it a try. We were there for almost the whole run. I think we collected 12 names, and not a single one of them ended up being a student that ended up in a seat on the third Friday.
Interesting.
And back to the old road show that we used to do, people just wouldn't show up anymore. I think the word about virtual schools is out there. People know about it. They go to college online. There's all kinds of opportunities to go to school online, especially post-secondary. It's not a new thing anymore. So compelled, they got to come see what this new thing is and take a test drive of it, because they've probably even done it themselves as parents if they were in college anytime recently. Probably took an online class here or there, or they have friends who did, or relatives that are doing something similar. So it just isn't the draw that it used to be.
And I think it's smart to adapt, just looking at the digital transition, versus especially during election year versus the traditional ads. I think it's a really smart advertising plan.
A little more here.
Yep, no, I know.
Okay.
I just want to make sure everybody's got their questions answered.
All right.
So in terms of the content that we're going to create, we did a really successful series of student-based testimonial videos about 3 years ago. They featured interviews and B-roll with our students and with our parents. We'd like to duplicate that. And then the ads, one of the nice things about the iHeart package for connected TV ads is the production of the ads themselves is part of the package, so we don't have to pay extra for that. Like I said, their concept is to focus on the 5-star reviews, and I really like that. Take that part.
So one of the key things is to try and identify what are people looking for, and how do we connect our message with what they're looking for. So here's just a sample of how people are looking for educational options in their areas. And while not every one of these search terms, and these are real searches that people are doing, not every one of them tightly or directly connects to what we do, but I did highlight with a faint red circle the ones that are pretty close. Even one of them that stood out to me particularly was Achieve Wausau, which kind of sounds like eAchieve Wausau, and I wondered, were they thinking there might be an eAchieve in Wausau? But that's kind of the theme for all of these. If you look, they're looking for educational options, charter schools, academies in their town. And that has become a really significant place where people are searching for options, and we feel like we need to be there with our message to let them know that we're an option if you live in Wisconsin. So back in January of 2018, knowing what I just showed there, we started a campaign where we would have landing pages on our website that if people were searching those terms, our web page would show up high in the search results and tell them about eAchieve in that town or in that city, or that even if you were a resident of this district, eAchieve is an option for you. And you can see the progress of those searches over time. By January of 2019, we had eclipsed over 900 landings on our page for people searching those kinds of terms, landing on these pages that had their cities and towns and school districts listed. And you can see on the right side of the graph the number of leads that were coming in. By January of 2019 was over 65 leads a month. Fortunately, we did receive a complaint that we were pretending that we were part of the other district, which was not the case. But nevertheless, we shut down those pages, and you can see on the graph on the right what happened to all those landings on our website. It went down to 0. So this was a highly effective strategy, and we've used the last couple of months to really revamp and take a look at those pages and say, okay, how could we make this more clear that we are not part of whatever other district, but we are an option to any student that lives in this city, in this county, or even in this school district, while making it very clear we are part of the school district of Waukesha, not the district. With that, we came up with a couple of pages that we'd like to show to you, and then this is really the discussion part of this especially, is what do you think about these pages? Is this or do we need to keep working on this? So take a look at these pages now. We'll start with the charter school page, because you saw that was a page that was coming up frequently. People were looking for charter schools in their towns or in their areas. What kind of charter schools exist around where I live? And right now these pages are behind a login, as you can see, so nobody can get to them unless you are able to log in. So I'm going to turn this back over to Chris, because he knows these pages forward and backwards, so I'm going to let him describe what these look like. I'm going to expand a little bit and zoom in.
So this would be if someone would search for charter schools in Green Bay, they would get a listing like this. It shows all the charter schools that are available in elementary level, middle school level, and high school level, with eAchieve listed as one of the options as a charter school that people who live in the Green Bay area can attend.
The right side is particularly important for this page because it makes very clear who the chartering entity of that charter school is.
Right. You don't think that Google is going to have a problem with Green Bay being in the URL?
Google's not going to have a problem.
I think Google's going to blacklist you.
Yeah, they might, if they catch on to what you're doing.
I mean, you get blacklisted by Google. I mean,
But
done.
But these are the pages that we're getting. The only
I
difference.
totally understand what you're saying. And, you know, for 10 years I worked in this industry, and I've seen everybody do everything right down to put in white text on a white background that you can't read. And no one knows is there except for Google. And I had so many customers, because they would do it on their own, that got blacklisted from Google because they had terms on their website that was a little misleading for the business that they had. So I don't know. I mean, maybe things have changed in the last 3 years since I left that industry, but that's dicey to have it. I mean, the URL, I mean, Google's going to find you in a second. They don't even need to run their algorithm to find it down here, is what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And this text, is this text or is this an image?
This is text.
So they're going to find this right away.
It's not formatted based on our website, but it's.
Okay. I mean, if you want to get so they can't find this, you got to make this an image. And I'm not telling you, I'm not telling you how to cheat the system, but this text, if this is live text, they're going to catch us. Public charter schools in Green Bay. I mean, that's.
And depending how that comes up, districts feel like we're encroaching on their website. I mean, I get hammered. I go to our state meetings.
What you do?
I just get thrashed because, as Rick noted, there are a number of other online schools, and it looks like we're trying to encroach on some of those, what they're doing. And so depending on how this is set up and how it looks, we run into that, and then I have to call Rick and say, we can't do that anymore. So, or if we do, we just have to face the potential hit on our reputation, so.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're trying to do here, but.
I'm not comfortable with it.
Exactly why we're bringing it here.
Yeah.
I mean,
So you have the same issue that every other business has. There's a bunch of businesses out there competing in an industry, and you need to depend upon who is the vendor, multi-view. These folks should be able to guide you properly as to what a good landing page should look like. And it really needs to be with just our information. Now, you might be bidding on keywords that include Green Bay, and because you're servicing Green Bay, so your keywords, it's okay to include that because we service Green Bay or we service whatever. Yeah. But actually, the landing page that you bring them to needs to be us. And that's what I was kind of getting at before. Where are we bringing people to? Are we asking them to fill the application out right away, or is there a micro landing page, a mini website, if you wish, or if we're just going directly to our website? But it really needs to be our information, and we have to own this. We don't own this. This is, like you were alluding to, this is what's called a black hat practice. And black hat practices, once they're caught on, you will...
Won't be showing up on Google anymore.
Yeah, Google will not present you in any search then. So I think I agree with you, Pat, that, and I'm not an expert. I do work on this. My business is in this area. I'm personally not the team that works on this within my business, but I'll bring it back to a couple people that do, and I would think that they would raise flags on this.
That'd be great information.
I think a key is not to say that it's in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but available for students in Green Bay.
There you go.
The in is
The in makes
spec
it,
at best.
not true, but it's available for students across the state of Wisconsin.
I think that's what you got to concentrate on. That this school is available for every.
That it's online and available for, and then just from there they can go, pursue further.
Well, would that fix it right there? Just change that, and now you have public charter schools available for Green Bay, public charter schools available for Appleton.
URL is gonna be a problem.
No?
I think it needs to, so you couldn't do every single city that we're targeting. You need to have a page that's well laid out that represents us, but letting people know that we serve the whole state. But again, whether it's through Google Ads or search engine optimization or your Facebook ads, we can geo-target whoever we want within the state to bring them to this page. And so you have anywhere we used to call it the 5-second rule, but you have about 0.2 of a second now. When people come to a landing page, they're pretty quick at determining whether they're at the right landing page or not. So I think you're going to have to come up with a very quick way to say we service the state. And that needs to come across very quickly. No matter where you live in the state, we can educate you. So then it's more generic. It covers more, and we're not misrepresenting. We don't really have a charter school in Green Bay. And that's what I'm thinking when I first saw this I saw the Lindholm building, I'm going, that's in Waukesha, that's not in Green Bay. And people in Green Bay will ask, well, what's that?
This was a strategy that was recommended to us by INET.
Yeah, no, I'm totally familiar with this strategy. I'm not saying that this is
And I think, well, that's why, they created a separate page for every school district in Wisconsin, for every geographic area, every one of the 72 counties. So if the idea is if somebody's searching for educational options in Langlade County, have a page specifically for Langlade with the word Langlade in the URL, it's more likely to get.
They're going to hit it right away.
Absolutely.
You better believe it. Until Google finds out we're not in Langlade County. But you know what, though? You might get away with the URL if the content is on the page makes it obvious that we are not in Langlade County, we're not part of that school district, and you may get away with the URL. Mrs. Voigt.
You kept track like we used to have, like where the kids were coming from all over the state of Wisconsin. That you could go in and, this is my class and I can see that, I've got this one from Superior and this one from Racine and this one. Mm-hmm. If you've got that kind of data and just say, kids are coming to us and have been for the last, 15 years, and are part of our charter, that's the kind of thing you want to have on your landing page. That, we bring kids from there to our school district all the time, traditionally. This is deceptive, but I think that the fact that we have been doing that all along is what we have to try to communicate. So I used to think it was great fun to, go check out that little, where's this class from,
So this,
Yeah, over the last, how many, and have those document, those testimonial kinds of things from some of the kids that, have been from Langley County or from Green Bay,
Different school districts.
Yeah, because I'm sure we've got data to do that, Going by counties and get your testimonials, I think that would be powerful and hit a couple different strategies, and not be shady in terms of potentially, because we've got the legit data.
so this, thank you for the feedback and the discussion. That's very, very helpful to us and helps us in other things that we've been talking about and discussing.
I think you actually have to ask your vendors, are these acceptable ways of, are these white hat ways or are these black hat methods? And do we run the risk? What are the risks as you start to develop this? What are the risks that we run and potentially being blackballed? I mean, Google blackballs you, it's just going to tank. So, I mean,
But it certainly is a question we're going to ask, and we can include that in some of the things we're about to talk about right now.
and if I was the superintendent at Green Bay, I'd be on the phone to Todd. And I'd be saying, Todd, what are you doing?
It's not quite that nice, but they do.
And Todd says, hold please, I'm going to connect you to Rick, and you're going to get him.
Yep. So,
What we're thinking then, in light of this discussion even, and that's just one issue, is that perhaps it's time for a major overhaul of eachieve.com. .com is critical to our marketing efforts. It is basically, first and foremost, a marketing website. We've been with INET now for 5 years. In the fourth quarter, we just got their plan for what they plan on working on the website, and it's really rudimentary, cursory stuff. We have a number of concerns in our relationship with them as a vendor. So this being the 5th year, we think it might just be time as a good business practice to revisit who's running our website and who's doing our SEO. We did commit a major error on the last day of the open enrollment period this past April, where they took down the link to the open enrollment application at the beginning of the day and the last day.
which is the day we get, on any single day, the most people applying than any other day. Wasn't discovered until about 1 hour before the deadline. When we did a comparison to the last couple of years, we estimated that based on the leads that we lost by historical comparisons, this is about how many students we would not get using historical conversion factors. And that is almost exactly the amount of enrollment down this year compared to last year's Friday. We brought this to their attention, as Darren knows, and they were not very eager to really work with us to do something to help us for the mistake that they made. now that we hear from other experts in the field that they may be recommending black hat techniques.
Artificially.
Enrollment only adds to, we can add one more bullet point on here.
Right. We have seen also declines in the number of leads that we've generated now for 3 consecutive months. And we've also seen declines in our organic search results. So where we were showing up on the first page in the top 3 in a lot of cases, now we're in the 7, 8, 9 position, sometimes second page of results, which is Death Valley for organic search results. And when we bring these things to their attention, their response is always, well, if we increase the budget that we're spending with them every month, then, you know, the results get better. What do they say you're going to get for the increased budget? Back to the levels that we were at. What are they going to give us for the extra money? Are they going to give us more changeovers on the keywords on the site? They could submit us to Google every week instead of every month. I mean, what the increase in budget, or is that by AdWords? No, they don't do anything with AdWords. So this is just to maintain the site would be to increase the budget, optimization.
More optimization.
So what we're proposing then is to RFP for website developers, site hosts, and SEO operations. And, you know, it might turn out that is the best option, and in which case we can retain them. We're on a month-to-month contract with them right now anyway. But we may also discover a different vendor who
We don't know. I don't know. Do you know?
No, I don't.
So that really is
On
the
the website,
end.
too.
That really is
On the
the
footer.
end of our presentation. You've given us some excellent feedback on it and kind of strengthened our feelings about where we might timeline for this RFP would put us at launching a new website on June 1st. If we work it all backwards in terms of getting the quotes, interviewing, meeting with them, and doing the transition. Replacing our website is a massive endeavor. Out. That would be devastating. So orchestrating this. Thank you very much for the additional insights.
So the CRM that is on the budget, is that something we're working with right now?
Yes.
We're already working with them?
Yes.
Does INET have a pipe into there? Do we have a tunnel into that?
Just as a to transfer the data?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. All righty, thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. All righty, next up is other business. Are there any recommendations for future committee meetings? Anybody? Well, if any come up, please let me or Darren or both of us know. All right, do we need to adjourn to executive session? Is that on?
There's an action item on the back. If
There's an action
you
item on
want
the
to
back?
proceed with the approval of the Arlington,
Oh, I got you.
I didn't know if you'd want to go in what we're doing.
Yeah, right. So let's, do we need to go into closed session to
We
discuss?
still, even with that action, we still have a 90-day due diligence period that we can opt out. I just
Right.
thought unless you'd rather wait, I don't know if it makes a difference.
Is that any board approval or just,
Do we go to the board for,
yeah, on Wednesday?
it's agendized too?
It is, okay.
But I always have to agendize it even though we.
Yeah, right,
but
for sure, for sure.
That's the way the meetings fall, so.
So are we comfortable not going into closed session? Do we feel we need to discuss it? I know how I feel about it, but is there anything that anybody needs, any other information? No? Diane? Well, get going on the action item. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, anything they want to discuss prior to the vote?
Maybe we can lay out the basics here.
Okay.
Yeah, just give the basics.
Sure.
So people in the TV audience know what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
I don't know how long ago, 6, 7, 8 months ago, we started talking about, and as we talked about earlier tonight, parking at Les Paul Middle School, especially during the construction upcoming in 20 and 21, is going to be a premium. And a lot came that's adjacent to Les Paul on Arlington, 339 Arlington Street, came up for sale, and we've been in negotiations on and off for the last 6, 7 months. So last month, we made the offer to buy the property for $90,000, and that was signed off. And so we have a standing agreement with the seller. We have the phase 1 environmental's already done and everything checked out, so that's underway. One of the contingencies is board approval, and even with board approval, we have the option to opt out of the deal with a 90-day due diligence period. So this has been, I think we've talked about this probably 4 times in committee, so it's an old issue, but now we need formal action by the board to move ahead. The committee and then the board, right, I should say.
Is there any questions or discussions pertaining to this action item? Ms. Voigt.
You mentioned that the conversations with the city have begun about the ability to park in that property, and where are we at with those discussions?
We have some work to do in that area. That's one of the things we'll find out during the 90-day
The 90-day due diligence, right. Any other questions for Darren? Okay. You just vote, this doesn't need to be a roll call, does it? Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion.
That'd be great.
I move to approve the offer to purchase the property located at 339 Arlington in Waukesha, tax key WAKC 1308426.
Second?
I second the motion.
Wait. Any further discussion?
It just the fact that we're losing 6 to 8 over at where we're going to be putting in the new parking lot at Les Paul.
Right.
I mean, we're already pretty tight. I think this will be potentially a good move for us to make.
Yeah,
so.
I would agree.
Could you review how many potential spaces this is going to have again? I don't have that schematic.
We have in the offer, one of the other contingencies, parking for 20 or 24 spaces. If you remember, we had Kapoor, who was doing survey work for us, so they did some pro bono work for us just to kind of rough out what it could look like.
I thought it was still in the 20s.
Yeah, lower 20s.
So you'd be picking up like 16 or whatever.
Good, yeah. And if that doesn't come to fruition, I think there's an investment quality to this as well, so.
Yeah, I would agree. Especially for parking down there. Alrighty, any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Opposed? 4-0. Yep. Moving on to the board.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have to officially adjourn or no? Do we have to adjourn? No?